Every single morning, Melanie would fasten the straps around her arms and legs, locking herself firmly into her wheelchair. Then came the metal collar around her neck, tight, secure, and unbreakable. Even with all these restraints in place, the soldiers never let their guard down. Each one double-checked her bindings, making sure not even a single strap was loose before wheeling her out of the room. Sergeant Parks always watched like a hawk. If any soldier leaned too close to Melanie, he'd bark an order immediately. There were over 20 children at the base, all just like her, and every one of them had to be fully restrained before leaving their quarters. 2 armed guards escorted each child, step by step, at all times. Only after confirming that none of them posed an immediate danger would their teacher enter the classroom. And there was a reason for such extreme caution. These kids weren't ordinary. They were second-generation zombies, carriers of the infection that had destroyed the world. Outside these walls, the world had already fallen. The undead ruled every city and street, while the last few humans hid in fortified bases. During the long war against the zombies, scientists discovered something unexpected. Children like Melanie, infected while still inside their mother's wombs. They looked perfectly normal, until the smell of human flesh reached them. Then instinct took over, savage, uncontrollable hunger. Yet within these children lay humanity's final hope. Scientists believed that by studying these half-human, half-zombie beings, they could find a cure, maybe even a vaccine. Over years of testing, something remarkable was noticed. Children who grew up with human education began to think, reason, and even feel emotions, just like normal humans. Melanie among them was the brightest. Her favorite teacher, Miss Helen, was the only adult who treated the children with kindness. And to Helen, Melanie was more than just a student. She was special. Sometimes Melanie's essays were so heartfelt they made Helen cry. Because of this bond, Helen often forgot what Melanie really was, but Sergeant Parks never did. Whenever Helen grew too soft, he'd remind her, through brutal experiments. Without their protective blocker gel, even the slightest whiff of exposed human skin could send the children into a frenzy. But Melanie was different. She could hold herself back, resist the hunger longer than anyone else. Then one morning, something felt wrong. No soldiers came for her, no sound of boots in the hallway. Time passed. Silence. Until suddenly, footsteps echoed again, but this time, they weren't taking her to class. For the first time ever, Melanie was taken outside the base. After spending her entire life behind those walls, she was finally seeing the real world, a world she had only imagined. Her eyes filled with fear and wonder. The base was surrounded. A sea of zombies stretched in every direction, endless and relentless. More and more kept pouring in, an unstoppable tide of death. Soldiers fired desperately, the echo of gunshots filling the air, but it was clear they were losing ground. The barricades wouldn't hold for long. Time was slipping away. Soon after, Melanie was taken to the laboratory. Among all the infected children, she was the most human, calm, intelligent, aware. Dr. Caldwell believed that inside Melanie's body lay the secret to saving mankind, the cure, the vaccine. To keep her still, Caldwell injected Melanie with a tranquilizer. Her vision blurred, sounds faded, and slowly, she sank into darkness. Once Melanie was unconscious, Caldwell and her assistant placed her on the operating table, fastening every strap tightly. But just as the experiment was about to begin, the door flew open. Helen stormed in. She screamed for Caldwell to stop, to show mercy. Caldwell didn't hesitate. She sprayed pepper spray straight into Helen's eyes. Blinded and in agony, Helen fell to the floor as soldiers rushed in and dragged her away. The sirens screamed through the halls. The base was under attack. In the chaos, Selkirk didn't see the zombie creeping up behind him. Caldwell reacted instantly. She snatched a fire extinguisher and slammed it into the creature's skull. But the broken glass cut deep into her hand. Selkirk wasn't as lucky. She was bitten, and within moments, the infection consumed her. Caldwell had no choice but to abandon the lab. Melanie was left behind, strapped to the table, alone. But the zombie didn't attack her. It sniffed, hesitated, then turned away. She carried the same infection. She wasn't prey. Realizing this, Melanie seized her chance. She grabbed a scalpel and sliced through the straps binding her wrists. Heart pounding, she staggered to her feet and pushed open the lab door. Outside, chaos. The entire base was gone, swallowed by the undead. Zombies roamed freely. Then she saw Helen. A soldier aimed at her, and something inside Melanie snapped. Rage flooded her veins. She lunged at the soldier, biting down savagely. For the first time, she tasted blood. Warm, metallic, addictive. And in that moment, she blacked out. When Helen regained consciousness, she found Melanie unconscious beside her. Tears filled her eyes as she pulled the girl close, bracing for the inevitable. But then, headlights. An armored vehicle roared through the chaos. Helen leapt onto it, still clutching Melanie. They'd escaped death by inches. Inside the vehicle was Dr. Caldwell, bruised, shaken, but alive. Sergeant Parks and a soldier named Gallagher were also aboard. The moment Parks saw Melanie, his hand went to his gun. He wanted to end the threat right there. But Helen threw herself in front of Melanie, shielding her. Caldwell quickly intervened too. After all, Melanie was her last chance to finish the research. To be safe, they strapped Melanie to the roof of the vehicle and locked a bite-proof muzzle over her face. Their destination, a lighthouse, 100 miles away. Another safe team was stationed there. But before they could reach it, the vehicle sputtered, coughed, and died. They were stranded, deep inside a dark forest, with the dead closing in. With no other choice, the group continued on foot, heading toward the distant lighthouse. By the time the sun began to set, they reached the edge of a ruined city. Sergeant Parks raised his binoculars. What he saw was terrifying. An entire city crawling with the undead. Thousands of zombies, motionless for now, dormant, waiting. They moved slowly through the silent streets. That's when they saw something strange. A zombie mother pushing a baby stroller through the horde. Out of curiosity, Dr. Caldwell extended her foot, gently stopping the stroller. She leaned forward and lifted the blanket. But what she saw inside made her blood run cold. There was no baby, only a rat chewing on decayed flesh. The sudden noise caught the attention of the mother zombie. Before she could scream, Parks reacted instantly. The zombie collapsed, but even with the silencer, the noise had done its damage. The surrounding undead began to stir. The group had no choice but to fight their way out, retreating through the narrow alleys under a storm of chaos. At last, they stumbled upon an old, crumbling building and decided to take shelter for the night. To ensure safety, Parks and Helen split up to check each floor, searching for supplies and any hidden threats. Dr. Caldwell and Melanie stayed behind, resting in the shadows of a broken room. Melanie, ever curious, turned to Caldwell and softly asked about her past and about the truth of the infection. Caldwell didn't hide anything, as she revealed the horrifying reality. When the outbreak first began, many pregnant women were infected, but their babies kept growing inside. They devoured their mothers from within, eating their way out to survive. And yet, these newborns were different. Somehow, their brains had adapted, coexisting with the virus. They could think, feel, and even learn like humans. These children, Caldwell said, are not monsters. They're the key. If I can create a vaccine from them, humanity still has a chance. Melanie sat silently, lost in thought, torn between fear and purpose. The next morning, the group prepared to move again, but when they stepped outside, their path was completely blocked. A massive crowd of zombies filled the streets. Sneaking past them, like they did before, was impossible. As everyone stood frozen, Melanie stepped forward. She offered to lure the zombies away, to create a path for the others. Caldwell immediately refused. To her, Melanie wasn't just a child, she was the cure itself. If anything happened to her, the research would be lost forever. But Parks looked at Melanie and realized she wasn't afraid. Finally, he nodded. "Let her go," he said quietly. Before she left, Helen gently helped her into clean clothes, whispering, "Be careful." Then, without hesitation, Melanie walked straight into the sea of the undead. Not one zombie turned toward her. She moved freely among them, one of their own. And as she reached the far side of the horde, she spotted something unexpected. A small, stray cat wandering the empty street. The moment Melanie saw the cat, something inside her snapped. Her zombie instincts took over. She bolted after it, moving faster than she ever had before. Within seconds, the chase was over. For the first time, she fed, truly fed, on living flesh. When it was done, she stood there, breathing heavily, her senses sharpening. As she wandered further, another scent caught her attention. She followed it cautiously and found a small teddy dog rummaging through trash. But this time, she wasn't hungry. Her mind was clear. Instead of attacking, she gently picked up the little dog, almost protectively. Melanie turned back toward the massive crowd of zombies. She placed the dog down near them and stepped away. The scent of fresh flesh spread instantly, and in seconds, the entire horde awakened. The zombies rushed after the terrified animal, leaving the area behind them completely clear. It worked. Melanie had done it. She had saved the others. Days later, they reached another city, but something was wrong. The streets were silent, too silent. No zombies, no movement, nothing. As they walked deeper into the heart of the city, they finally saw it. A skyscraper, hundreds of feet tall, completely overgrown with strange plants, and at the base of the tower, thousands of rotting corpses. Zombies, fused with the roots, entangled in vines that had grown directly from their flesh. Dr. Caldwell stared in horror. In that moment, she understood. The virus had changed, evolved. It was no longer limited to living hosts. Now, it had merged with nature itself. The infection had entered its second stage, spreading through plants, preparing to infect the very air. "When those fruits ripen," Caldwell whispered, "the virus will be everywhere. Anything that breathes will die." Dr. Caldwell carefully plucked one of the strange fruits from the vine. She decided to take it back for study. As they walked, Melanie looked at the fruit curiously. "Why would this cause the end of the world?" she asked softly. Caldwell sighed and began explaining. "The virus inside these fruits is dormant, waiting. Once they ripen, they'll burst open, releasing spores into the air. And when that happens, every living thing that breathes will be infected. It's almost indestructible," she said. "Only fire or extreme heat can break it open." A few blocks later, the group stumbled upon an abandoned vehicle parked beside the road. It looked like an RV, but Caldwell's eyes widened the moment she saw it. It wasn't just any RV. It was a mobile laboratory. They rushed inside, and to their surprise, everything was intact. The equipment was untouched, the systems functional. Though the engine was dead, the solar panels still worked perfectly. For now, they had shelter, power, and hope. But one problem remained: food. Supplies were running dangerously low. Sergeant Parks tried to radio the lighthouse, but there was only static. No response. No rescue. Gallagher volunteered to go out and search for food. He took his rifle and disappeared into the ruins. Meanwhile, Melanie began breathing heavily. A dull hunger twisted inside her. That same primal instinct she'd fought to control. Parks noticed and, after a tense pause, gave her permission. "Go. Hunt. But be careful." Melanie nodded and slipped away into the shadows of the ruined city. Soon, she found a pigeon resting on a rooftop. In a blur of motion, she caught it and devoured it hungrily, satisfying the creature inside her. But Gallagher wasn't so lucky. He searched every alley, every empty store. Nothing. And soon, he realized something was following him. At that very moment, Melanie froze. Her senses sharpened. She smelled blood, fear, and something else. Something familiar. Following the trail, she arrived at an old, half-collapsed house. Inside, she saw them. A group of zombie children, just like her. One of the children rushed in and whispered something into their leader's ear. Instantly, the group got up and ran out together, swift and silent. Melanie watched them vanish into the night. Then it hit her. They were hunting. Without wasting a second, she turned and ran back to warn the others. Bursting into the RV, she told Parks what she'd seen, a pack of zombie children roaming nearby. At the same time, far away in the city streets, Gallagher finally spotted a lone can of food lying on the ground. He reached for it, unaware of the shadows closing in behind him. Gallagher spotted a can of food lying on the road. He picked it up eagerly, and then saw another one, and another. A whole trail of cans led deeper into the city. Without a second thought, he followed it, straight to the entrance of an old supermarket. The glass doors were jammed shut, just wide enough for him to slip through. To squeeze inside, he had to remove his gear, his rifle, and his radio. He didn't know it yet, but he was walking right into a trap. Back in the RV, Parks tried calling him, but Gallagher never heard it. Inside the store, Gallagher exhaled in relief. Finally, food. He grabbed as much as he could. Then he turned around and froze. A young boy stood behind him, holding a giant rat. Before Gallagher could move, more shapes appeared from the shadows. Small figures, pale faces, hungry eyes. Zombie children. They pounced all at once. By the time Melanie and the others arrived, it was too late. Gallagher's body lay torn apart.
Melanie's eyes widened in horror. Then realization. She felt it. Movement outside. "We have to go. Now!" But as she peeked through the broken doors, they were already surrounded. The same zombie children, dozens of them, closing in. Parks instantly raised his gun. Melanie stopped him. "No," she whispered. "They're not attacking to kill. They just want to live." She stepped forward, unarmed, calm. But the tension broke in a heartbeat. A female zombie lunged at her. Melanie reacted instantly. One punch sent the creature flying. The leader of the zombie kids charged at her with a rusty bat, screaming. Melanie dodged every swing effortlessly.
Then, with one quick counter, she twisted his arm, snatched the bat, and struck back. One blow, then another, and another, until the leader lay lifeless on the ground. The others froze, shocked, terrified. They stared at Melanie in silence. Without their alpha, the zombie children scattered, fleeing into the ruins. The way was clear. Melanie led Parks and Helen back through the wrecked streets, back to the safety of the mobile lab. But when they arrived, something was wrong. The door was open. Caldwell stood in the shadows, wearing a gas mask and pointing a gun straight at them. Before anyone could react, a hiss filled the room. Gas. Their vision blurred. They tried to shout, but it was useless. Within seconds, both Parks and Helen collapsed. Caldwell had flooded the lab with sleeping gas. Her infection had spread. Her wound was turning black. She knew she was running out of time. If she couldn't save herself, she'd at least save humanity. She had to dissect Melanie, now. But when she turned around, her eyes widened in disbelief. Melanie was already awake, calm, silent, standing tall in the middle of the gas-filled room. Because of her half-zombie body, she didn't need to breathe like a human. Caldwell's plan was exposed, but instead of fear, she tried persuasion. Her voice trembled as she spoke to Melanie. If we create this vaccine, you'll save everyone. You'll be remembered as the hero of humankind. And Helen, she'll never become one of them. For a moment, Melanie's eyes softened. A part of her wanted to believe it, but then she remembered the children, those half-dead kids wandering outside, just trying to survive. What was their crime? They were born like this, not by choice. And ever since the beginning, humans had done nothing but use them, experiment on them, fear them. Except Helen. Helen was the only one who ever showed kindness. But the truth was clear now. This world no longer belonged to the living. It already belonged to the dead. Why should she sacrifice her own kind for people who never cared about them? Melanie turned to Caldwell. Her voice was calm, almost gentle. Stay here and don't follow me. Then she walked out of the lab, alone. Caldwell understood instantly what Melanie was planning. Panic struck her. She ran after her, shouting, gasping for breath. But she didn't get far. A group of zombie children appeared from the mist, surrounding her. Caldwell froze. Then, a faint smile crossed her face, a tired acceptance. Her time had come. Meanwhile, Melanie reached the giant fungal tree, the core of the infection. Without hesitation, Melanie took out a match. The tiny flame flickered in her hand, and then she dropped it. In an instant, the fire spread upward, igniting the enormous fungus. One by one, the pods began to burst, each explosion releasing clouds of spores into the sky. Billions of microscopic zombie cells drifted into the wind, racing across the planet. The infection that was meant to end the world had finally begun. Melanie walked away from the burning tree. On her way back, she found Parks stumbling toward her. The infection had already taken hold. Melanie's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry. I had to," she whispered. Parks shook his head. He already knew. He pulled out his gun, his hand trembling, and looked at her one last time. "Please, before I turn." Melanie hesitated, then slowly nodded. A single gunshot echoed through the silence. Later, Helen woke up inside the lab. The world outside was quiet, eerily still. She was now the last living human on Earth. But when she looked out the window, she saw dozens of zombie children waiting. The same kids Melanie once fought. They weren't attacking. They were listening. Helen understood. Melanie had kept her alive, to teach them, to pass on what humanity once was. She gathered the children, sat them down, and began to speak. "All right, class, let's begin." And so, in a world ruled by the infected, a new civilization began, born from both death and hope. And that was the ending of The Girl with All the Gifts. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more awesome movie breakdowns. See you in the next one.